StreamYard, here we go. Hopefully you're here. It is 9 in the morning, Sunday Fantasy Baseball. Leonard is here. He'll be in the chat room talking and chatting and doing his thing. He likes to take a day off every now and then because, he does Monday through Friday, 9 a.m., and it gets very tiresome this time of year, but we all want to keep him fresh because I don't know what I would do without him. He's my alarm clock Monday through Friday. If he didn't say welcome aboard in the morning, I don't think I'd get out of bed until like noon, maybe. I don't know. But it's super nice to see you, and those of you who did come, because I'm not surprised that it's not that busy in the chat room today. It is today's football, number one. Baseball is pretty much over for the season, but I really don't care how many people come. That's not why I do this. So nice to see you, James. And can you hear me good? Can you hear me, Leonard? So tell me the sound check. Super nice to see you. I guess you like to be called Jim, not James. Jim is probably better. Jim is more casual. Anyway, let's get started. We got lots of nuggets, lots of stuff going on. And don't forget, tonight at 6:30, we have the Roto Imbeciles. He is going to talk about the long career of Dusty Baker. He's going to talk about Derrick Henry, some football information there, talking about Derrick Henry being a fantasy monster. Is Corbin Burns worthy of Cy Young? He's going to talk about the enigma, Adam Duvall, and Nick Castellanos. So we hope to see you guys tonight at 6:30. We will be there. Lenny and I will always be there. We love George's show. It's always good. He's just a very unique person, and we love having him around. So if you're not busy at 6:30, come on back to chat room. And if you are listening on Facebook or YouTube, come on over to LennyMelnickFantasySports.com/live. That's where we chat. That's where we talk about whatever it is. That's where we talk about my rants. Anyway, the average viewership for the postseason is pretty good. I mean, through the division series, it was the highest since 2018. And I really think that the games have been great. The playoffs have been exciting. The whole season has been really good for baseball. And I just love the fact that Atlanta is going to the World Series. Actually, the World Series is coming to Atlanta. So how about that, MLB? What you going to do now? I can't think of a better place, okay? A more deserving group of people than the Atlanta fans. Then after they got the All-Star game just stolen from them, I think it's just nice to see this happen for them. The money that they lost out on because MLB is a wackadoo, the money that they lost, they might make up some of that. The small business owners that are probably hurting pretty bad. I just think that it's just such great. It's karma. It's beautiful. The Atlanta Braves I'm just excited for them. I'm so thankful that they won. Okay. Because I already was disappointed that Houston was going again for the third time in the last 5 years. They're going to the World Series. Fine. Whatever. It's just, how exciting is that? If it would have been the Dodgers against the Astros, it's just, I don't know. I just crave something new. And I love the story of the Braves. I love the fact that their manager did not give up on that team when they were not in the lead. When they had Acuna go out, they had Soroka go out. He never even pitched, Mike Soroka, never even pitched, okay? Marcell Ozuna, he hasn't played since the end of May. Ronald Acuna, he's been out since July 10th, and what do? They don't give up. They add Jock Peterson. They add Soler. They add these guys. They freaking add Eddie Rosario, in exchange for Pablo Sandoval on July 30th. They freaking traded Pablo Sandoval and got back Eddie Rosario. Is that even possible? I think that the reason that it was able to happen is that Eddie Rosario was injured at the time, and he still had like a month left before he was even going to be eligible to come back if everything kept going as planned, right? Anything could go wrong at that point. But So he still needed a month before he was even able to get back out on the field. So he wasn't even available to play till like, I would say August 30th. He hardly played at all, but he was absolutely worth every cent of Pablo. Is that freaking Panda, dude? That's Panda. Do you realize who Pablo Sandoval is? It's Okay, that's who they traded to get Eddie Rosario. Anyways, he's MVP, National League Championship Series MVP. He hit .560. He went 14 for 25 with 3 home runs, a 1.647 OPS in 6 games against the Dodgers. 14 hits. That's tied for the most by a player in any postseason series. Tied with your boys, Marco Scutaro, Kevin Youkilis, Albert Pujols, who we'll talk about in a second, and Hideki Matsui. I remember Hideki Matsui as a Red Sox fan. How could you forget Hideki Matsui? He used to come to Fenway Park and just he was a Red Sox. He was just a killer when he came to the Fenway. He was excellent. He was like what's that dude from Atlanta Braves that always would come to Shea Stadium and he would just crush everything there? What was his name? Lenny, I know you know. He named his kid Shea, or his dog. I think it was either his kid or a dog. I know that's horrible to get a kid and a dog confused, but you know, they're both part of your family and you love them both the same. Not the same, but you know what I mean? Anyway, what was his name? He played for the Braves. He used to come to the Mets and he used to crush it. That's like Hideki Matsui. Oh, the guy that named his, the guy that played for the Braves that named his dog or his kid Shay. Oh, come on, man. He still plays baseball, or he still comes around and watches baseball. He's still involved in the game. He used to crush the Mets at home. Okay, anyway, moving on. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you, lady. Super nice to see you, okay? It's so funny because whenever a dude comes in and he's a guest, the dudes usually get girls' names, and it's just totally coincidental, I'm sure, because the chat room doesn't know if you're a girl or a guy. But if you come in as a guest and you're a girl, you'll probably get a dude's name, and if you come into the chat room as a guy, you'll probably get a female's name. It's crazy. So anyway, what's nice to see you, Chris. Very nice to see you. So last night, like I mean, what the Braves did and the story that has been laid out in front of us is great for baseball. It's great for just it's great for teams, it's great for the players, the way that it's about momentum. It's about camaraderie. Like, how do they get along? How does this team mesh in the clubhouse? How do they get along on the field? Do they not like each other? Do they have a bunch of drama going on behind the scenes? You can really tell a team that gets along well, and these are the teams that win. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you have Houston, who isn't surprising to anybody. They've been getting along. This Houston team, even without George Springer, even without, Verlander, even without some of these key players that they entered the season without, even without them, this team is a playoff experienced team. They have been into the World Series 3 out of the last 5 seasons, and they are not messing around. They get it. They don't even have to work at it. They know how to work together, and they get it done. I mean, you look at the records, you see guys like Altuve and Correa, they're breaking records for like the most hits, the most this in the postseason, and these records go back a long ways. So this particular team is not that surprising, okay? But the Atlanta Braves, what they did when they had these injuries, they were dealt a bad hand like every other team in baseball, but instead of giving up and letting it pass them by, they decided to go for it. And I think it really just inspired this team to work even harder. That's what they did. You have guys like Eddie Rosario coming through, but it's not just that. Their pitching, you look at their pitching was not that deep, okay? But their bullpen yesterday, they showed exactly why they deserve to be where they are, okay? AJ Minter and Tyler Matzik. So first of all, the starter yesterday was Ian Anderson. He allowed 1 run over 4 innings. Then Minter comes in and pitches 2 perfect innings. So AJ Minter this postseason, 7 1/3 shutout innings, 2 walks, and one of those walks was intentional, by the way. 2 hits, both singles. He struck out 11 of the 25 batters he faced. He struck out 42.8% of the batters he faced within his past 6 postseason appearances against the Dodgers. And by the way, the Dodgers, and they have not been good all season against the Braves, especially when you go to Atlanta. The Dodgers have not been good in Atlanta. Their pitching has not been like it has been with every other team. Like Walker Buehler was not dominant against Atlanta all season. So even though he was a real good pitcher this year, he did not dominate the Braves. So you have AJ Minter. This guy was sent to AAA a couple of times this season. Throughout this season, he was down, demoted, promoted, demoted. Okay. That's how just average of a pitcher this guy was. So just coming around in the postseason, getting it done when it matters the most. Then you have Matzek. He might even deserve even more credit than AJ Minter because this guy, he enters the game with runners at second and third in the 7th inning, okay? He throws 2 dominant innings. And by the way, Atlanta's rolling with 3 lefties. Their best pitchers in the bullpen are all 3 lefties. They have, I think Will Smith is a lefty. And then regardless, Tyler Matzek is a lefty. This guy comes in 3 consecutive strikeouts. He strikes out Albert Pujols, Steve Souza, and then on 3 pitches he strikes out Mookie Betts, and all 3 pitches are fastballs right down the middle of the plate. And that says that you're talking about one of the best hitters in baseball here in Mookie Betts. He watches 3. Actually, he swung. He might have swung at all 3. Maybe he stood around and watched 1. I can't remember how it went down. All I can remember is what it looked like as it flew across the middle of the plate. Just stunning, Mookie Betts. So he had a perfect 8th inning. He pitched 2 innings. This is great. This is what an effector is all about. An effector comes in when the game's on the line, gets it done, can pitch more than 1 inning. Now this guy, Tyler Matzek, is 2 years removed from the Braves director of amateur scouting, Dana Brown, actually found him playing in the independent Texas league, or in the independent league for the Texas Airhogs. That's how they found him. They were scouting out the minor leagues and they found this guy. Both of these guys struck out 4 batters. 6 critical outs in this game comes from Tyler Matzek for sure. Will Smith struck out 2, perfect 9th inning, closes it out. Game 6, sold out park, of course. Can you even imagine it not being a sold out park? They so deserve to have the World Series at their home. They so deserve it. There isn't a team more deserving in baseball than this Atlanta Braves team, okay? They beat the Dodgers 4-2 in the National League Championship Series. The Braves haven't been to the World Series since 1999. That's like 11 years, okay? And they did all of this without their boy Acuna, which is, I mean, you know, this is the first time that Freddie Freeman is going to the World Series, and he deserves it, right? For sure. I'm just saying, they absolutely outplayed the Dodgers. I saw Cody Bellinger and somebody else, but they were actually it was nice to see that they were able to fool the shift, right? Because they were getting shifted on, and they actually choked up on their bat or did something and lowered their hands or whatever they did. They were able to turn their body and hit to the opposite field, and that is how you beat the shift. It is not about banning the shift. Oh, we got to ban the shift because it's annoying or whatever. No, learn to hit the ball to the opposite field, and then you won't have to worry about the shift. Actually, nobody would even bother shifting on you anymore if you actually showed that you could hit to the other side. I mean, look, I'm not like a professional Major League Baseball player, but I used to play softball in high school. It was fast pitch softball, but either way, if you turn your body a little bit, you can hit the ball to the other side. I know that's ridiculous to think that that's how it is, but it seems to me that easy. Maybe it's not. Obviously, it's not. Anyway, look. All right. So in the end, the $260 million payroll loses to the $135 million payroll, or 160. I have their payroll written down here. We'll come up to that note. But for now, the bottom line, the Dodgers had the highest payroll in baseball by far. No doubt about it. 106 wins. Great postseason. You know, they had the Giants and the Dodgers. That was great series. These have been great postseason. That was just to top off a great regular season, like I already said. So the Braves and Astros will begin the World Series on Tuesday night at Houston. At which, okay, look, this is pretty cool because Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves, he gets to go to Houston, and his son, Troy Snitker, is the coach, the hitting coach for the Astros. So it will be Troy Snitker against, Brian Snitker, right? I'm totally rooting for the Braves. No question about it. Okay. So Charlie Morton gets to go back home, reunion with some of his pals, and we still now haven't seen a repeat. So the last time we saw a repeat World Series champion, so 2 years in a row, it was in 1998. You're going to love this one, Chris. The Yankees, 1998 to 2000. That was, there's not been any kind of repeat for World Series champion. It's the longest repeat champion drought in the history of the MLB, NBA, NFL, or NHL. So we're talking about all of these. I know that they don't all call their championship series the World Series, but Super Bowl, whatever it is that they call the Stanley Cup, I don't know. Okay, whatever it is, we haven't seen in all four of these sports, we have not seen back-to-back champions since the Yankees in 1998, and that is the longest. It's kind of like the longest drought for going to the playoffs in all of these sports is the Mariners. Still, they came so close this year. They came so close. So, like I said, Freddie Freeman gets to go to the World Series for the first time. He made his debut in 2010, so he is obviously due. Okay, he deserves it for sure. Now, outside of the spring training games, Astros and the Braves haven't played each other since July of 2017. Can't wait. It'll be so fun. All right. You have 66-year-old Brian Snitker and 72-year-old Dusty Baker. This is going to be the first World Series where both managers are 65 years old or older for Game 1. And this is the oldest combined age between both World Series managers ever. All right. Frederick. I'll get a real handle later today. Good morning, Christopher Gallo. Nice to see you. Hello. Hello, Mike from Wisconsin. Great to see you too. Like I said earlier before you came here, whenever you come in as a guest, if you're a guy, you are determined to get a woman's name. And if you're actually a woman like our friend Chris, you're going to get a man's name. I don't get how that works, but it's a little strange. It's probably all coincidental, but super nice to see you here. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about how cool the Braves are. I love it. Now, don't forget to come tonight at 6:30 for George. George will be on. He's the Roto Imbeciles. He does a great show. It's very unique, fun to listen to. We always have a good time. We do trivia. We listen to music, whatever he wants to do. He works at a golf course during the day, so he'll be on at 6:30 tonight. He's going to talk about Dusty Baker. He's going to talk a little football, Derrick Henry. Corbin Burns, is he worthy of a Cy Young? George will let you know. And a couple other players, Adam Duvall and Nick Castellanos. That's at 6:30 tonight right here at the chat room. And Alex, and okay, the GM for the Braves, he's the only GM out of all four of the teams that's the last four teams that remained in the playoffs. It was the Dodgers, Astros, Red Sox, and Braves. He's the only one among those four that didn't come from Tampa Bay. All of these managers were a product of Tampa Bay, and that's not that surprising for anybody, right? He's the only one. So I think what he did, dude, is so great. It's just great what he did. He did not give up. He said, players, I'm willing to invest more money. I think you guys can do it. Don't give up. Here you go. Here's Duvall and Rosario and Peterson. Like, here's all these guys. Bam. Jorge Soler is back, and I have to admit, I made a mistake. I thought he was vaccinated, so I was telling you guys last week that he could come back at any moment because that's the rules. If you're vaccinated in Major League Baseball, the rules are that all you have to do is not show symptoms and get a couple negative tests, and you're back in action like that day. Unfortunately, he did end up missing the full 10 days, even though he didn't have any symptoms the whole time. The only reason he was tested was because if you're not vaccinated, you do still get regular testing. I thought that he must have had symptoms because I thought he was vaccinated. So my mistake, and he is back now, and he says now he's changed his mind, and of course he wishes he would have been vaccinated. I totally get that. But now it's like the fact that he's all gung-ho to get vaccinated, it's like, I don't get why, because in 6 months you're going to have to do it all over again, and it makes no sense since you already got COVID. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm not trying to like convince anybody of what to do, even though everybody's already made up their mind what they're going to do. So moving on. Soler, he was batting leadoff, before he got positive test. And he is back now. And so we'll see. I don't know if he still has a job. I really don't know what they're going to do with them, but it's not a problem to have extra players. But they've been doing just fine without him. He's not the greatest player in the world, especially for fantasy. He's going to hit some home runs, but he's not that reliable as a fantasy guy. However, when he came over once he arrived, in Atlanta, he was like hitting very good. They had him batting leadoff, and he was, that guy can hit for some damn power. I don't know why he's batting. This guy is he's a middle of the order batter if I've ever seen one. But when they go and play in Houston, he'll definitely be the DH at least. So he'll get some play. Entering Game 6 yesterday, the Braves' only loss in their last 10 home games, including the playoffs, was against the Mets on October 1st, and that was the day after they clinched the National League East title. And the Braves rested half of their regular lineup that day. The Braves were nowhere, dude. When July 30th came around, the Mets were in the lead those days, we talk about like if the season would have ended after 60 games, Atlanta would have not been around. They would not even have been talked about at that point in the season. A lot of things would have been different. Like the Colorado Rockies would have made the playoffs. And so it's, every year after the fantasy season ends, I go and I grab all the stats. I try to remember before it's too late. And this is like the most important thing I'll say all day for you guys. Go get your league standings immediately from all your leagues. Put them into a Google spreadsheet and so that you have them, because one day, and I don't know exactly when that will be, it changes depending on the website, but one day you'll go there and you'll be like, oh, what were the standings? I got to see how I did. And it will be completely gone, and you will not be able to see the stats from this year. So before that happens, I highly suggest, it is so important, go there, grab your numbers, pull them into a spreadsheet. Even if you don't work around with them, you still are going to want to go back there as a reference. You're going to want to know, believe me, going forward, you're going to want to know. And one main reason that you're going to want to know is so that you can figure out your targets, your category targets for next year, because especially if you're playing in the same league, you can see what did you need to win last year. And now that we're back to 162 game seasons, it's just so important to be able to create these category targets. And you can't have a better reference point than your own league. So go do that. I forgot what I was going to say, like when I brought that up, but basically every year we go through, we grab the stats, we grab the standings, we look at, our drafts. One of the drafts that I do a lot of best ball drafts, and I don't really look at them all season. And then at the end of the season, I go and I look at them, and it's so interesting because this is where you can really see how off the grades are on your draft. So I got an A on one of my drafts for best ball. It was the best draft that I had according to Fantasy Pros, which I'm not knocking Fantasy Pros by any stretch of the word, because they only go by the projections just like we do. But I got an A on that draft, and I finished in dead last in that league. I just love these best ball leagues because you don't have to do anything. You just set it and forget it. Okay, so that didn't go over so well, but I love to bring in the stats from those leagues. These best ball leagues are mostly points leagues, so I think they're all really pretty much points leagues. Either way, I did okay in some of my leagues and I did horrible in others. I didn't finish dead last in any leagues except for that best ball that was at NFBC BB5s. That was a $5 league. So there were several people from this website, our friends and listeners, that were in that league as well. And one of them, Stardog, kudos to Stardog out there. He came in second in that league. Anyways, I pull in this stuff and I say, okay, then I divide, then I look at the first place team and the second place team, and I create a sheet for each one. And I take all my leagues, I take the first place guy, his team, and I put it on a spreadsheet. And then I go to my other league and I take the first place guy of that league and I put his team on the same spreadsheet. Now I have 5 leagues with just the first place teams. And then I look at the number of times the players, like which players are showing up the most, which players are showing up the most on the first place teams, which players are showing up the most in the second place teams. I do that for first and second place. It's so weird this year, man. Like out of 5 leagues, there's like 2 or 3 players that showed up 3 times. One of them was Garrett Cole. One of them was DeSclafani. That isn't that surprising, to be honest with you, that the first place team had DeSclafani on it more than not. But, you know, Cedric Mullins wasn't on one of them yet. I have more leagues to put in there, but out of the 5 leagues that I've put in there so far, not one first place team had drafted Cedric Mullins, which we're talking best ball league here. So you can't do anything once you draft. And that just means that basically, you know, Cedric Mullins was a guy that you could pick up off the waiver. Now, if I went over to a Roto League and I looked at Labor or Tout Wars, I guarantee the first place teams, a good chunk of them have Cedric Mullins, but they didn't draft him. They got him by spending $1 on him and taking a chance on him. He was probably free. So that's fun. I haven't really done an in-depth analysis yet, but I'm working on it. We do have some fun stats that I have figured out about 2021. We'll talk about that later, but let's talk about the Dodgers for a second. I know they're out, but they did not hit well. They hit 183 in 5 games at Atlanta in the regular season. They lost 4 out of 5 games when they went to Atlanta. Excuse me. Albert Pujols, one of my favorite players, definitely in my book, just a great representation of what baseball should be. Just a great guy. I'm so happy that he went to the Dodgers and he showed the Angels how stupid and sucky they are. He might have played his last game, right? But that's okay because he broke all kinds of milestones this year, and he just, you know, his slugging percentage with the Dodgers was .460 in 85 games. And that was higher than his entire time with the Angels, right? .447 in 1,181 games. And it was .460 in 85 games with the Dodgers. He probably had a little chip on his shoulder, don't you think? He probably had something to prove. Like, see ya, Angels. Even if you only put me in against lefties, I'm going to crush them. I'm still going to hit home runs. This guy was, man, he was good for 100 RBIs every year through thick and thin, no matter what team, no matter how old, no matter what. Batting average was horrible towards the end, but in 1,705 games with the Cardinals, he slugged 617. So obviously the Angels, dumbass Angels, they signed him to a way too long contract, or they traded for him, whatever they did, that was way too long to invest in him, you know, for at that price. And actually he could have been a lot worse for the Angels. I was really surprised when they let him go, and I thought it was effed up. So it's nice to see Pujols, okay, get the last laugh here, just like the Braves. So the Astros, yes, they beat the Red Sox. They are going to the World Series for the third time in the last 5 years. Blah, blah, blah. They outscored the Red Sox 23-3. Okay, they hit 303, and that includes 375 with runners in scoring position. And what do the Red Sox do? The Red Sox go 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. They get 10 hits in the whole time. They scored 1 run in the final 26 innings of the series. So they just hit a wall. Eovaldi did not come through. Chris Sale was not himself. You know, they don't have a lot of depth in their pitching to begin with. So the Red Sox, hey, nobody thought they would even make it that far. So congratulations to both the Yankees and the Red Sox, who both really pounded it out and at least made it close to the playoffs. The Yankees, they lost out in the wild card game, but whatever, they still did better than we thought they were doing. Yordan Alvarez, first player ever. So many records Kiki Hernandez broke this year, like so many records. He's this, he's that. He's like the first hitter to do all this. And now we have Yordan Alvarez. He's the MVP now of the American League Championship Series. I think it was unanimous. He's the first player ever to out-hit the opposition in the final 2 games of a playoff series. He went 4 for 4. He hit an American League Championship Series record, 522. That was his batting average. 12 for 23. He joins Big Papi as the only designated hitters to win the American League Championship Series MVP. Big Papi. Yes. Okay. And let's see. He's got the highest batting average in a single postseason series, okay, in history, with a minimum of 25 plate appearances. So in 2013, Big Papi hit 688. 1995, Edgar Martinez, 571. And Eddie Rosario, look at this. Eddie Rosario, 560. That's this year. You have another one on the list, which is who we were just talking about, Yordan Alvarez, 522. So these are the highest batting average in a single series in postseason history. Big Papi leads the way by far. Nobody can catch him ever. Shout out to Big Papi. Carlos Correa look, 18 postseason home runs. This is because the Houston Astros are constantly in the series. He's tied now for 7th most all time in postseason history, 18 homers. He's all right, tied with Mickey Mantle, Reggie Jackson, and Nelly Cruz. Plus, he's got 55 postseason RBIs. That's the most among active players, and 4 go-ahead home runs in his career in the 7th inning or later in playoff games. So he's been absolutely clutch. Carlos Correa, still overrated in fantasy, in my opinion. Okay, because he really doesn't do anything that exciting in the regular season. I could be wrong, and things might have changed a little bit. I just think he's overrated. Altuve, on the other hand, he scored 11 runs for the Astros in 5 playoff games. That ties him with Carlos Beltran for the most runs in any 5-game span in a single postseason. Beltran in 2004, 21 runs that year. That's the most all time in a single postseason. So we'll see what happens. Altuve, they're not done yet. Okay? They're not done yet. Altuve is the 4th player in postseason baseball history to hit 20 homers. The other ones were Manny, Manram, Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter. Right? Altuve is also the fastest player to reach 20 home runs in the postseason, 68 games. Fastest player to reach 20 home runs. Michael Brantley. This guy, not only did he, going back into last season, Michael Brantley had a 16-game hitting streak in the postseason. So we're just talking about postseason here. You look at I was looking at his game log and I was going, there hasn't even been that many games yet. So how could he have that? Go back to last season, goes back into the last season. But let me tell you, I dug a little further into this one because it's pretty interesting. In the past 2 postseasons, yes, he had a 16-game hitting streak in the postseason, but there was only 1 game, right? Stop that, because he played 37 postseason games in the last 2 years or something like that. He only didn't get a hit in 2 games. So this guy deserves more credit than just a 16-game hitting streak. I mean, literally, he has his batting average in the postseason crushes everybody. Now, he doesn't do flashy things like hit home runs or anything, but this guy is a get on base, get some hits, get some runs, score runs all the time. Brantley, only 2 times in the postseason did he not get a hit in a game. Then you look at Kyle Tucker, man. Lenny was very he was cautious with Kyle Tucker. He doesn't really like his swing. I think Lenny doesn't really think that Kyle Tucker didn't really believe in his swing. Let's put it that way. Didn't really believe in it. Thought he needed to change it. I'm not sure exactly why. Lenny, put in the chat room why you didn't like Kyle Tucker's swing. But the worst thing you could do is try to change some dude's swing after he makes it to the major leagues or, after he's drafted. I mean, obviously he's doing something that is working for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be in the running. But do you remember how long Houston left him down in the minors? And it was like, what the hell? This guy is hitting, crushing everybody in the minor leagues, and Houston refuses to bring him up. That was just a couple years ago. There was something to that. This is way past the deadline where you're going to still get another year of control. It had nothing to do with that. They were leaving him down there because they didn't like something about him. So finally he gets called up and he stays up and he does very good. And right now, since the All-Star break, post All-Star break in the regular season, in 65 games, he hit 17 homers, 36 extra base hits, 50 RBIs, a 325 batting average, and a 1.028 OPS post All-Star break. So Kyle Tucker getting it done. He's one that showed up several times in, the number 1 teams. Kyle Tucker's name showed up more than once. So he definitely helped people win their leagues this year. 100 years ago in 1921, teams averaged about a half a triple per game. So it was 1 triple for every 2 games, right? Every team averaged 1 triple every 2 games. Now in 2021, they are averaging 1 triple every 7 games. I don't know what that means, but I do think that's interesting. I talked about that last week. So I hope Malpel is here. I really do, because I want to talk about Mike Shildt possibly going to the Padres. And then we'll talk about, is Malpel? Yay, Malpel and Tina. Okay, nice to see you. All right. The Cardinals, we talked about this last week too. I mean, it's beyond belief that the Cardinals fired this guy after, his record and stuff. And here's a guy that has got 17-game winning streak, makes it to the playoffs. The only Cardinals manager ever fired after making it to the playoffs. He's been with the team for the last 4 years, or maybe even longer than that. I would say he spent 18 years in the Cardinals organization. Let me just rephrase that. 18 years in the Cardinals organization, the last 4 years as the general manager after Matheny came and went. However, he's got an interview. He's going to the Padres. He's got an interview this weekend. I don't know if it already happened. Maybe it did. Maybe it already happened, but today's Sunday. So all I know is that AJ Preller, if they got rid of AJ Preller, dude, and hired 2 people to do the 2 jobs that he's trying to do, that he can't even do 1 job, but he's doing 2. That's what the Padres are doing. He says, this is what he says, according to people within Preller's circle, right, familiar with his thinking, they said that this Padres GM is seeking, now these are quote, presence, right? Is that like mound presence? He's seeking presence and alignment in his next candidate. What does that mean? Are we doing yoga? Presence and alignment. It's crazy talk. He doesn't care if you have experience, even though the last 2 managers that he hired had no experience and they both stunk. I think the last 2, either way, Tingler had no experience, so he was the bench coach. No. Okay, there's another guy that's in the running here, and I'm sure Malpel knows this too already. Skip Schumacher. He is the bench coach. He was Tingler's bench coach, and he is a candidate to take over. And that would be fine too, because you're just promoting from the inside. But he's getting a job. Guaranteed this guy will have a job. There's more than one team that needs a manager. Padres would be so stupid. They would be so stupid not to take this guy on and hire him immediately. So, yes, we wondered and we made, we assumed and we made our guesses about what we thought was going on when you say it's something like irreconcilable differences or something, like why they just came out and said we're getting rid of Schilt. Well, he actually did clarify a little bit more. He just refused to say much, but he did clarify that there was something wrong. Hold on a second. So anyway, he's the first interviewee in a search that began after they fired Jace Tingler earlier this month. Preller says that it's realistic to expect that the process will be ended before November 8th, which means that they will have made a decision on who their next manager is going to be in the next 2 weeks. The general manager's meeting is in Carlsbad on November 8th. So Schilt did have a year left on his contract. Like I said, he spent so many years with the Cardinals. I mean, think of that on your resume. This is known as one of the best teams, one of the best organizations. I would say the Cardinals are right up there if they're not the best organization in baseball history. The Cardinals way, like they're always doing right, the things that are right. Anyways, he's made 3 trips to the postseason. He's been everything. So while the Padres were falling apart, the Cardinals were winning 17 games straight. And Schilt did clarify, here's where I got in my notes. He acknowledged that the conflict over the implementation of analytics and the front office's refusal to upgrade the Cardinals roster were the factors, or some of the factors, in his exit. Now, I think it was like the reason that they gave, I don't have the exact reason that they said, but it was something about how they aren't on the same page, right? Right, because Schilt wanted them to give him some pitchers, give him some players, add to the roster, and the management didn't want to do that. So I think that his view of young players too is a little bit different than the front office or whatever. But anyways, whatever it is, that's as much as we're going to get out of it. That's as much as we kind of already knew that. In fact, Lenny told me that the day that he told me that Schilt was fired, he told me that exact thing, that they were having, that he was a little annoyed that they would not add some players and give him more tools, right, to get it done, but he still got it done. Anyway, he's got a great reputation. He's a players manager, but he's not like just a normal players manager that's just a wussy and players can walk all over them like Aaron Boone. Okay. I'm not going to dog on Dusty Baker, but he's kind of like that too, a little bit. All right. But Schilt, he is a players manager, but he also, he demands respect. He demands that you come to work on time, and he it's not always like, I'm going to say something positive to make you feel good when you're just an ass. When you should have caught that ball, you caused an error, we lost the game. He'll probably tell you that, so that's good. At least we have that going anyway. Preller, I hope he would be just so stupid, and I wouldn't be surprised if Preller didn't hire Schilt, because if they don't, that's a huge mistake in my opinion. I can't think of another manager out there that would be as good as him. Maybe Skip Schumacher would be okay. And again, he's hired from the inside. He's promoted because right now he's the bench coach. That would be great. But if Schilt comes around, then Schumacher will work under Schilt still. And guess what? These two guys spent 9 seasons together in the Cardinals organization already. So they know each other. They've worked together for 9 years, and that's that. All right. So that's what I got today. I'm almost done. And I really want to just tell you some of the things that I was able to come out of the fantasy season, the 2021 season. So as far as like just interesting tidbits for fantasy purposes, but the number of, okay, so here's what I did. I took the overall stats for the league. The number of players the number of qualified hitters is the first one that I have. And I compared it I did 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021. I skipped and left out 2020, except for certain stats. Like with the a batting average, I did with the not the counting stats, because you can't use the counting stats when you're coming up with your projections for next year. But what we see, we want to notice like things that were out of place, that were a lot different, that just don't really jive with the last couple seasons, or if we see trends going in a certain way. So it was impossible to use 2020 in any way. So this year we had 132 qualified hitters, and that's pretty much right in line. Although it's gone down every year for the past 4 years, it's gone down, but just a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. We did only have 2 players participate in all 162 games. That's definitely going down. It's been single digits the whole time since 2017. You have less than 10 players who actually play in all 162 games. And let me tell you one thing, there is value in that. There is a lot of value in that. Kevin, our old friend Kevin, he pointed out to Lenny and I a couple years ago at First Pitch Arizona. He mentioned that he noticed that the teams that scored the most runs, that usually, if you score good in runs, like if you're in the top 3 in your league in runs scored, you will finish the league in the top 3 or the top 4. You will. It's really the most parallel category that you could point to that says this category here tells you where you're going to end up in the league, in the standings. So it's quite the opposite. There's the least telling categories are stolen bases and saves. So you could finish dead last in saves and still win your league. Okay. And you don't want to finish first in stolen bases. I could tell you that right away. If you finish first place in stolen bases, you're not finishing in the top third of your league. That's pretty much a given. So runs, definitely based on the number of at-bats. You lead the league in at-bats. You are going to lead the league. You're going to be right up at the top with these counting stats. Runs, you're probably got a lot of leadoff batters, but RBIs are going to be a problem. Whatever you get, this is all just, this is just numbers. So here's what we got: 700 plate appearances. Only 2 hitters had 700 plate appearances. When in past seasons it was right about 10 players, give or take a little bit. Not that big of a difference. But when you start to go to like 100 runs scored, the number of players that scored 100 runs down significantly from 2019. It was 29 players scored 100 runs in 2019, and only 16, about half of the number of hitters scored 100 runs in 2021. Go to 100 RBIs. That actually went up, if you can imagine. In 2019, it was 22. It was 20 in 2021. In 2018, there was only 16 that did it. So lots of hitting going on. But the batting average, this is crazy. The batting average, is going down. It keeps sinking and sinking. The average batting average in baseball, in the league batting average, I didn't even write it down. Why the hell didn't I write it down? It's like 230 or 240. It's really low. The number of hitters that had a 290 batting average was 18. In 2018, there were 40 hitters with a 290 batting average, and in 2021, there was 18. The number of hitters that batted over 300, 14. In 2019, there was over twice that many, 36. So the batting average is just, it's getting bad. Remember that when you're going in and you're like, oh, I can't draft that guy because he's got like a 238 batting average, and that used to be going to get you kicked out of baseball. It doesn't do that anymore. You're fine. You're okay. All right. At 236, it's horrible, but anyways, there was only 3 batters with an on-base percentage over 400, only 3 batters, and 7 batters with an on-base percentage over 380. In 2018, there were 26 batters with an on-base percentage of over 380. So this is a third. Let's see what else we have that are major differences. The number of hitters that stole 15 bases or more. There was 24 this year. In 2019, there were 42. So again, stolen bases are going down, but I have to say, as far as the success rate of stolen bases, the success rate is better than it's been in a long time, and that is because managers are not letting guys run unless they know what they're doing. They do not just let guys be in charge of running willy-nilly anymore. Like you're not allowed to do that. So the runners that are good at running, they know that they have the green light and they get it done and they're successful. And those that are not successful, and if you see a guy, his success rate continues to go down and he's continuing to age, that's a given. Do not be thinking that they're going to give this guy more chances to steal bases if his success rate sucks. And age doesn't help either, but okay. So that would be stolen bases. Now, in this year, 2021, there were 47 guys that stole 10 bases. So, right? Because if you're a fan, I mean, that's important just because I find it, a lot of people can go into their drafts and they could say, I could get about 5 or 6 guys that are going to steal me 10 bases, and that's going to add up to like enough to at least keep me competitive. You don't have, like I said, you're not trying to win your league in stolen bases. You are not trying to have the most stolen bases, because if you do, you are giving up other categories that you should not be giving up. But just in order to compete in that category, which is the goal all the time, right? You don't have to get that many stolen bases. I mean, we're talking like 60, maybe 70. That's what you need. So if you grab guys that steal bases and hit home runs, just 10 stolen bases here and 10 stolen bases there, you are competing in that category. So 47 batters stole 10 bases this year. But in 2019, 71 batters stole 10 bases. Again, we're having that number. It's like half, a little more than half of the number of batters that are stealing 10 bases. So they're not as easy to come by anymore, okay? There was nobody that stole more than 50. Actually, this year there were 5 batters that stole 5 batters that stole 40 bases. In 2019 there were 10. So let's talk about home runs real quick. We have the number of hitters with over 40 home runs, 5. In 2019, there were 10. The number of hitters with 30 or more home runs, there were 40 of them. That didn't change that much, but it did go down from 2019 where there was 58. So, and another thing, in 2019, there were 129 hitters that had at least 20 homers. Again, 20 homers here, 20 homers there. It gets to be late in your draft, 20 homers, you're grabbing that guy probably, right? Even though he's, these are just, there's always a 20 home run guy. That was in 2019, there were 129 of them with 20 home runs. So easy to come by, right? Home runs were like sitting on the waiver wire for free. There was 84 this year. So there's still a few, but 20 home runs, I'm talking about a big drop off in the number of players. Now for pitchers, there were 39 qualified pitchers, meaning 39 pitchers threw at least 162 innings in 2021. In 2019, there were 61. Now, of those qualified pitchers, 4 of those guys threw over 200 innings in 2021. There were 15 of them in 2019. We knew that was coming. However, if you can go down the line, if you are, 180 innings, 20 pitchers threw 180 innings, 33 pitchers threw 180 innings in 2019. So then you talk about the strikeouts, right? 17 pitchers threw 200 strikeouts. That was way more than we thought it was going to be, all right, going into the season. So that's a pleasant surprise. 24 of them threw 200 strikes or struck out 200 batters in 2019. Really not that big of a difference for those. Not a huge drop off in the strikeouts for 180 strikeouts, 26 pitchers. In 2019, there were 29 pitchers. Really, pretty much the same number of pitchers striking out 180 batters. There's quite a huge difference in the number of pitchers with an ERA under 3.5. 37 this year. In 2019, there was only 22. So you've almost doubled the number of pitchers with the ERA under 3.5, which is saying something. We're either getting better pitchers, the pitchers are better, even under 3, an ERA under 3. There were 15 this year. There were 15 starting pitchers with an ERA under 3. Starting pitchers. That's great. 10 in 2019. That's completely, I mean, forget about the innings pitched. Forget about that and the drop in innings pitched. Look at the ERA and the strikeouts. Those are still hanging right in there where they've been, if not better, right? There was even 9 pitchers with an ERA under 2.75. And then you look at wins, of course, there was only 1 pitcher with 20 wins this year. That would be Julio Urias, but there was only 2 in 2019. There was you go back, the further you go back, the more wins you see in a season, but it's been on this trend for several years, and I don't think this shortened season has anything to do with the number of wins. That was on a downhill spiral to begin with. So anyway, 15 wins. There was actually only 5 pitchers to get 15 wins, and in 2019 there were 17 starting pitchers with 15 wins. So there are some differences here, and of course I have more work to do here. I do know, those are the numbers that I have pretty much. I was going to tell you that I knew the league average for on-base percentage and batting average on balls in play and stuff like that. I know the batting average on balls in play went down. It's like 290 or something like that. So, I know a lot of people don't use batting average on balls in play, but it is a very useful statistic, especially early in the season when you don't have a lot to go by and you're going, what the hell is wrong with this guy? And you look at his batting average on balls in play and you say, holy crow, it's like 200 or something. That can help you out early in the season. I don't care what people say. They love their new formulas and all this crap like, expected weighted on base percentage and all of this. Fine, do your thing. But batting average on balls in play is super useful early in the season because it tells you if this player is injured or if he's just got some bad luck going on or a horrible defense. Maybe he plays in Cincinnati where the defense is just, I don't think they were the worst defense, by the way, but that's the first one I think of. So, okay, everybody, have a great day today. George will be here at 6:30. I really appreciate you all coming around and talking baseball with me. The World Series is going to start on Tuesday. That's exciting, okay? And I'm just rooting for Atlanta all the way. I wish they could play every single game in Atlanta. They deserve it. The people, the small business owners deserve it. The locals deserve it. It's just such a great, it's just, karma is super. So on that note,